Most people know the mummies were created to preserve the dead, but the strangest thing is, centuries later, the living gave them a second life. Shall we peek behind the story? Some mummies were not only studied, they were swallowed. For centuries, Europeans didn't fear mummies. People tried to defeat death by consuming the dead. Ground into powder, mummies were swallowed as medicine. A paper archived by NIH's PubMed Central records the use of mummy as a drug in Europe from around the 12th to the 17th centuries, with the practice lingering later. A rich brown pigment called mummy brown sat on European palettes for more than 300 years, used for shadows and skin tones. It was made, at least historically, from ground mummy remains, and artists ground them into paint. One story says Edward Burne-Jones, a Victorian painter, was so horrified that he buried his tube of paint in the garden, and the color reportedly disappeared for good in the 1960s, when the makers admitted they had finally run out of mummies. Before cinema turned mummies into monsters, polite society turned them into an evening's entertainment. In the 19th century, mummy unwrappings were performed for audiences, sometimes with scientific framing, sometimes closer to spectacle. Everyone knows the most famous thing about mummies. Disturb one, and you unleash a curse. But that ancient curse has a birthday, and it isn't ancient at all. Fancy a deeper look? One of the earliest curse stories was written in 1869 by Louisa May Alcott, the author of Little Women. Decades later, Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, wrote his own mummy tale, where a mummy comes back to hunt the living. And the Tutankhamun discovery in 1922 made the idea explode through journalism and popular culture. The curse did not crawl out of the tomb. It spread through newspapers. And after centuries of fiction giving mummies new stories, here was a mummy that had carried one all along. In 2026, archaeologists identified a fragment of Homer's Iliad, placed inside a Roman-era Egyptian mummy. Now travel to the mountains of northern Japan. Here, some Buddhist monks tried to become mummies while still alive. For years, they followed extreme rituals to dry the body from within, then were sealed underground with only a bamboo tube for air. A bell rang each day until it stopped. Years later, if the body had not decayed, the monk was honored as a living Buddha. Perhaps the strangest thing about mummies is not that ancient people tried to preserve the dead. It is that later generations kept reinventing them. A mummy was meant to survive death. But its story survived in ways no embalmer could ever have imagined.